Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to a look ahead to tomorrow's race in Austria. And my word, how good was it to finally have qualifying back? I cannot tell you how hyped I was at the start of that session. The minute the music started playing, I was grinning from ear to ear. It has been far too long. But coming up in this race look ahead, I'll throw some grid stats at you. We'll also have a look at the possible race strategies. I'll also pick my first one to watch of the season, and I'll give some of my thoughts on the session and what I'm looking forward to tomorrow later in the video. But let's start with a look at the final result from qualifying. It is Valtteri Bottas who grabbed the first pole position of 2020 with a 102.9. What a lap. Also, he managed to grab that on his first run because on his second run he ended up in the gravel, and although he did manage to rejoin the track, that was it for his session. And it has to be said that he was pretty much first on track, and so some of the drivers behind him were compromised by a yellow flag. But that's kind of irrelevant at this point because that would have made no difference because Bottas would still have been on pole. Lewis Hamilton a 102.9, 0.012 seconds off. However, after the session, he was summoned to the stewards for allegedly failing to slow for yellow flags, so he could have faced a grid drop there, but it was later announced that the stewards have cleared him for failing to slow for yellow flags, and therefore he received no penalty. He did, though, have one of his lap times deleted from Q3 for a track limits infringement. And if you'd like to read a bit more about that decision, there is a link pinned in the comment section down below to an article that will explain more. Max Verstappen was third at 103.4, half a second off the pace of the Mercedes. However, he did a great job to get through Q2 on the medium tyres, giving him a strategy advantage tomorrow. He also admitted post-session that Mercedes were on another level compared to everybody else. Lando Norris ended up in fourth place, absolutely superb, a career best fourth place as well. And it's great to see McLaren continuing that progress from last year, and he's expecting to fight the racing points in the race tomorrow. Alex Albon, fifth place, he was a little bit disappointed with that, but did think it was going to be worse, so I guess in some ways it's a positive. But it must be said, as has been pointed out on Twitter, he did not have the updates that Max did this weekend. I'm not saying he would have been ahead of Max or equal to him, but I'd expect him to be closer than that. Sergio Perez, sixth place, same time as Albon, but Albon set his first, so Perez starts behind him. But he was very happy with his session, as I'm sure you can imagine. They look seriously good racing point two. Not looking quite so good for Ferrari though, 103.9 for Leclerc in seventh place. 0.9 of a second off Mercedes and 0.9 slower than he was taking pole this time last year. I'll talk about Ferrari later, but Sainz in 8th place. He very much gave it the PR spiel. He was happy with the team results and the car improvements, but he did point out that he was struggling with balance, and as Norris has displayed, there's definitely more pace in that car. Lance Stroll said he had a clean lap and described the session as positive. He starts 9th, and Daniel Ricciardo, 10th place there, was one of a number of the top 10 caught out by yellow flags. And although he was initially frustrated on the team radio, let's put it that way, he said that's because he didn't really realise how far off the track Bottas has gone, but he's okay and understands that decision now. Sebastian Vettel out in Q2 in 11th place there. He was surprised by the team's lack of pace. The AlphaTauri boys, Gasly in 12th and Kvyat in 13th, they've both kind of accepted that's the pace they've got, but were happy to make it into Q2, although Kvyat does feel there's more time on the table. Ocon not happy down there in 14th place. I can understand why, quite a way off his teammate really, but he's hoping for better tomorrow. The Haas boys, Grosjean 15th, Magnussen 16th. But George Russell in 17th place was so close to making it into Q2, about 700ths off in the end, and the Brit admitted that the results had exceeded his expectations. Concerning lack of pace there from Alfa Romeo, Giovinazzi 18th and Raikkonen 19th, and then Nicholas Latifi rounds off the field in 20th place. He was pleased with his first quali, but feels there is more time left in the car, as George Russell demonstrated, of course. But Latifi did have a crash in FP3, which may have dented his confidence a little bit, but I don't think that's a bad start for Latifi. A long way to go this season yet. All of that means we have a provisional grid that is, at time of recording anyway, identical to the result. Of course, it is only the first race of the season, so no engine penalties or anything like that, no blocking penalties. But later in the year, this part of the video will be where we look at the grid after penalties are applied. It's kind of pointless this weekend though, so let's move on. Whilst I'm talking about the grid, I've got some stats for you about starting positions courtesy of Lights Out blog. I really like these, I had to include them. So the pole sitter hasn't gone on to win at the Red Bull Ring since 2017. And the driver who has started in 6th place has never won the race at all. So not a great start for Checo there. 13th place hasn't scored since the year 2000. 14th place holds the record for the lowest grid slot that the race has been won from. And the driver who started in 20th place has not scored at that circuit in any of its iterations since 1974. Sorry, Latifi. And when it comes to point scoring, well, based on previous results at the circuit, the driver on pole, shock horror, is the most likely to score points with a 74% chance, whereas second place only has a start to points finish conversion rate, if you like, of 58%. Don't worry, I'm not going to read them all, but just a couple worth a mention, and there may well be some crumb of comfort for Latifi down in 20th, as he actually historically has a better chance of scoring points than the drivers starting in 11th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th and 19th place. Pretty bad news for Kimi Raikkonen though, 19th place has just a 10% likelihood of grabbing some points. And before you hop in the comment section to tell me this means absolutely nothing, I'm fully aware it really doesn't mean a thing. But it's a good, intriguing stat to look at and, well, yeah, I love stats. Should we move on to something a little bit more relevant then? What about strategy? Well, as you saw earlier, most of the top 10 will start on the soft tyre with Max Verstappen on the mediums. But in terms of strategy options, Pirelli's projections list these as the 3 quickest strategies. Those starting on the soft tyre, the used soft tyre in qualifying will run 24 to 28 laps, then switch to the hards and run to the end of the race. Max Verstappen starting on the used mediums is expected to run 27 to 32 laps and then put the hards on to the end. And then those starting on a brand spanking new set of soft tyres are expected to run 30 to 34 laps on those, pit, and then run to the end on a set of mediums, which is 37 to 41 laps. The one stopper is the quickest way around the Red Bull ring and the most likely strategy, but there is a fourth option which is a 2 stopper, which is 2 stints of 16 to 18 laps on the soft tyre and then running to the end of the race on the medium tyre. It is also worth noting that the gap in performance between each compound isn't really huge, with 0.5 seconds between the medium and soft and 3 tenths between the hards and the medium. So that's 8 tenths across the range that are in Austria. Moving on though, and for the first time this season, it's time for my one to watch. Now, I did consider Max Verstappen because he is starting on those medium tyres, so it's going to be interesting to see if that alternate strategy can pay off. And of course, we've got to keep an eye on Lando Norris there in 4th place. Can he hang on or even threaten for a podium? But the driver I'm picking is Sergio Perez. I am really surprised just how good that car looked across one lap, equaling Albon's time, of course. But its race pace was really strong on Friday. In fact, Checo was top 3 on both the soft and medium tyre long runs. So I really do think, should everything go off without a hitch tomorrow, he could be threatening for a podium. Plus, it's Perez, and he's shown so many times over the years what he can do with an underperforming car. So what the hell is he going to be able to do in a car that's properly quick? And his ability to look after his tyres could be very handy as well in a tight scrap with those around him. Got to be Checo for me this week. Keep an eye on Vettel though. He is down there in 11th place, free choice of tyre. But also the 2 Renaults. That car had good long run pace on Friday too. And as I said earlier in the video, I really do feel there's more pace in that car. In summary then, a few thoughts on the session. All in all, it was a great session that answered a few of our questions. But I'm not going to get too carried away because it is the first race of the season and we shouldn't get too carried away. But Bottas, who absolutely loves this track, was so impressive today. And genuinely, I am so happy to see that, because if this is going to be another season where Mercedes run away with both championships, we as fans really need Bottas to be right up there fighting Hamilton week in, week out for the championship. I was surprised, or I suppose more underwhelmed by the pace of the Red Bulls, honestly. There was a lot of hype around them coming into this season. They looked really good in testing, and I thought they'd be much closer to Mercedes than they actually were, but they could be better in the race tomorrow. As Max Verstappen points out in his post-qualifying quotes, the one-lap pace of the Red Bull has never been especially epic around the Red Bull ring, or in general really, and they always seem to perform better in the race, so keep an eye on that tomorrow. As for Ferrari, I don't really know what to say. I was absolutely adamant they were just playing down their chances over the off-season, and fully expected them to rock up in Austria and be comfortably in the top 3 at the very least. But it was just generally a very, very poor showing from them, and I hope for their sake that this update package that is set to arrive for Hungary sorts that car out. They were nowhere at all today, and based on quali alone, they look to be 5th fastest at best. And if there is more pace in that Renault, it could be 6th. That said, kind of the same as with Red Bull, we'll have to wait and see if that pace improves or gets worse or stays the same in the race tomorrow. But it's a worrying time for Ferrari, and I bet there's a few concerned Ferrari fans out there too. But on the positive side of things, I'm really excited to see what McLaren can do this season now we've seen that raw pace in qualifying. And although there's a lot of hype around Racing Point, and I get that, and I kind of have been enjoying that, Renault have been a big surprise for me this weekend, as have Williams actually. More pace than I expected them to have. Yes, they both went out in Q1, but Russell was right on the brink of getting through into Q2. But seeing Renault's performance today, it kind of just adds to what I said when we were doing the season look ahead last Sunday when we were live, that Renault could well be dark horses this season. But frankly, I'm just so happy to have Formula 1 back. It's insane how hyped I am at the moment. But at the same time, I kind of understand that there's going to be a lot of people out there that will be concerned about this apparent Mercedes dominance. But what I would say to that is, first of all, we've had 7 months without racing, so yeah. And secondly, even if those two bog off with the championship, it looks like we're going to have such an incredibly tight scrap in that midfield. In fact, I don't want to call it a midfield because at the moment it looks like it's Mercedes and then everybody else. I still think we're going to see some great racing this year. And like I said earlier, if Bottas can take that fight to Hamilton, we could have an epic inter-team title fight like we saw with Rosberg and Hamilton in 2016, as well as a phenomenal fight to be, let's say, best of the rest. Plus, it is only race 1 of the season, so I don't think people should be panicking just yet about this year. But if Mercedes do win it, Mercedes win it. I'm not bothered. I'm just so happy for the millionth time this weekend that Formula 1 is finally back. Bring on that race tomorrow. So much to look forward to. That is it for this video though. You can, as ever, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What are your predictions for the race tomorrow? And which driver are you keeping an eye on? Now, I will be back tomorrow with the race reaction live a couple of hours after the Grand Prix tomorrow. But in the meantime, don't forget that you can of course follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will catch you again in the next one. Bye bye.